I presume you have some feedback for us.
I'm waiting for any comment from the board, and once I have some comment, I will address the comments with feedback.
Well, personally, I think I expressed my concerns over the last 6 months, and I expressed them on the review, so.
I may approach.
Sure. Do we have a time frame on this, Mr. Manager?
It's inappropriate, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
What's inappropriate?
It's your meeting.
Yeah, it is my meeting.
It's not.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, the law is quite clear. This is a public review, and I have the opportunity for public rebuttal,
Okay,
to which I will publicly rebut.
super.
I'm not even gonna look at it. I could be just that arrogant.
This way. That'll work.
Mr. Manager, would you like us to take a 5-minute recess just so you're going to be good, or you?
I'm completely
Okay,
ready, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
cool.
I thank the board for their public review, and I'm grateful that the law allows me likewise to publicly respond. As my review is public, it is likewise my legal right to have my rebuttal just as public. I'm here to do just that. One can always make the statement that the types of rankings used in this review are subjective, and therefore one's scores are also a subjective assessment of an employee's performance. However, subjectivity can easily be countered with facts, and benchmarks reached in the face of subjectivity skewed scores can be telling. In the next few minutes, I will briefly highlight a few areas of the review to show the people at home, capture on video, and preserve for the record what the objective facts are. Then I will let the viewers and the video determine whether there's a legitimate review here or a clear pattern that is neither subjective nor objective, but something else. I'm not going to stand before you tonight with an hour-long presentation on every topic. Instead, I will briefly show only a few slides and a few categories to display what any objective fact finder will find. The submitted performance reviews speak for itself. All of the categories are similarly ranked repeatedly by 3 scorers. These 3 scorers repeatedly gave 1s in a cross-section of categories, while the other 2 scorers ranked something higher and some things lower. One group had an aggregate score of 1.3 versus the other who had an aggregate score of 2.8. Is this subjective, or is it objective, or is it something else? I'm not here to put any spin on anything. I will let the facts and the numbers speak for themselves and allow objective observations of benchmarks achieved be the guide to determine if some of the scores show a pervasive pattern of being skewed with no basis. Moreover, as I briefly go over a few of the points, the record will show, the video will preserve, and the people at home will see that the scoring pattern displays themselves. I will subsequently submit my full report in writing to HR upon completing it. The first area is communication. score of 1.9. The problem with subjectively ranking communication is that it ignores one side of the discussion. Communication works in both directions. Examples of two-way communication. The board asked for information, I gave it, there was discussion. The State of the Town presentation sent to the board on 1/23, auditor's reports, quarterly updates on budget expenditures, the road program, an update on collective bargaining and executive session. Examples of one-way communication. The board asked for it, I provided it, and the board never opened any dialogue. Town Manager's Report, 7/31/18. This right here, Exhibit A. In Exhibit A is a 5-year outlook on the town. Has projections, has capital staffing projections, has 5-year growth projections, has cherry sheet actuals versus projections, has 5-year state aid projections, has 5-year levy limit projections, has debt schedules. It's 21 pages. Not one comment, no reflections, no acknowledgement. The State of the Town meeting books, Exhibit B. This one, 54 slides. It was printed in the meeting books on 8/10 and scheduled for discussion, which was never allowed. Evidently, 54 slides is too long. The PowerPoint was directly emailed subsequently to every Board of Selectmen member per your request on 8/15. No comments, no reflections, no acknowledgement. You asked for the presentation, I gave it to you. You never allowed me to present it. Then you asked me to email it to you, and you never commented back. I wasn't even given the opportunity to show the PowerPoint. Here are the emails sending it to you. So what's the difference? There's two-way communication in some situations. There's one-way communications in others. State of the Town presentation, Mr. Andrew Vani was part of it. Auditor's reports, the auditors were part of it. Quarterly updates, Mr. Vani again was part of it. Road program was DPW. Collective bargaining update in executive session, HR. The auditors, perhaps that's an exception, as they're a vendor and an expert. But as for the rest of the group, they are my department heads. They work under my direction. Besides the 1/23 joint presentation with Mr. Vani, the board never once gave me the opportunity to join in any of these conversations, nor did they grant me the parliamentary procedure and courtesy of directing comments and questions through me. These aren't empty opinions. The videos are evidence enough. In every other instance, I had to make my points directly known and interject just to even be part of the discussion. Yet, on my account, I always maintained parliamentary procedure. I maintained professional courtesy. I inevitably directed every comment and question through the chair. I'll let the audience decide. Is this evidence building and stacking upon itself? As noted, the communication is two-way when with others, and even those in my charge, but my reports, my presentations go without note, go without comment, and without discussion. In every situation, I deal with the board in the same manner. The board requests information, I provided it. When the board is given, when the report is given by one of my charges, the board has direct dialogue with department heads, yet you keep me out of the conversation. I maintain parliamentary procedure and decorum and interject through the chair just to be part of the conversation. When a report is to be discussed by me, the board has never opened a dialogue with me or given acknowledgement or commented and or on the report. Not publicly in session or directly through email, not one time. Here's what I showed you before. These are all the examples of one-way communication. They were presented by me. Here's what I showed you before. All the examples of two-way conversations. They were presented by other charges. Is that communication score of 1.9 or evidence of something else? You decide. So what's the difference? There's a double standard with communication dealing, is there a double standard with communication dealing directly with me and then with others associated with me? Could this display one-way communication be just one indication of some other underlying issue? Communication was just one category ranked, and perhaps it's somewhat more subjective than others, and more subjective than objective. What about actual objective facts, tasks, and benchmarks? Surely those are not debatable. One either hits the benchmark or one doesn't. Those scores must be objective, right? In the next few slides, I will continue to show skewed scores, even in the face of objective benchmarks, and let the audience decide if it builds a clear pattern. Improve personnel administration and staff development. Score, 1.7. Hires. All hires to which we want to address immediately have been filled. HR is addressing the current vacancies in the DPW and in the assessors. Staff development. Amy. She's in the process of MCPPO training. Justine is on her way to SHRM, is taking every MMPA course that there is budgeted to pursue the MCPPO certified next year, is pursuing her master's in public administration with my encouragement. Jane. She got her CMMC licensing under my administration. At NEMC, she's getting her CMC, her full licensing this summer. She's budgeted to pursue her MCPPO next year, has taken on the task of issuing licenses in Town Hall and dealing with the ABCC, has been given far more managerial tasks, is currently pursuing her bachelor's because of my mentorship and encouragement, and is being mentored by me toward advancing her career past being a town clerk. Andrew Vani. He's budgeted for him to pursue her MCPPO next year. Keith Caruso. He's taken on managerial position. He's becoming certified in MS4. He's seeking further licensing. There's major budgeting for his education, training, and certification in next year's budget. At no time in recent Millbury history, and I dare say never, has it ever happened that managers were sent to the MMA annual conference. All of these managers went to the MMA conference. All of them were paid for, all of them attended. They built networks, gained critical skills and knowledge. The information that they got from this conference is invaluable, is absolutely staff development. Rob McNeil was forced to pay for his own conferences. Never has a Millbury manager supported his team in such a way that he encourages educational advancement. It helps the individual and the town. Unmatched staff support, never before seen in Millbury, somehow equals a 1.7. Is the evidence piling up? Could this be a display of some other motive at work here? Enhance financial stability of the town. Score, 2.16. I'm glad it makes you laugh.
I said I feel like I'm on trial
It's on
here.
tape, and I want the tape to show that we have rankers, scorers, laughing at this. Preserves the tape, preserves the record. Thank you. I brought our reserves to the true 5%, not the shell game that was presented in years past. We're about to go to bond. It would have been discovered for what it was. And as you heard the auditor say, we have 10% of unassigned fund. That's the free cash and stabilization. That's the number that everyone is getting a little upset that we have so much free cash. Well, you heard him say, because of the fact that we had so much free cash, we met the 10% threshold right before we bond. I increased revenues into the abatement account. I funded OPEB for the first time. I'm putting $200,000 into OPEB. The amount of money in there before that deposit, 0.0. Unfunded liabilities account is funded for the first time ever. The amount in that line, 0.0 before I put $80,000 into it. None of this has ever been accomplished by any manager in Millbury history ever. 3 of the scorers ranked these objective accomplishments 1.6. These objective accomplishments 1.6. I'll leave that there for people to look at. 1.6, considering that none of these have ever been funded ever until I did it. The other 2 rated it 2.9. Does the evidence pattern indicating something else build? Enhanced financial stability of the town. January 2017, Fallon Healthcare, I had been here a day. Fallon Healthcare was going to raise our medical insurance by 16.7%. That was the best that our paid consultant could do for us, 16.7%. He went out to bid, he courted all the providers, and he got us the wonderful rate of 16.7%. I brought in Maya, not Ed, not our paid consultant. It was my dealings with Maya. I personally reached out to them, and I had Tara call and make a bid. We got a 3% increase in year 1 and a similar increase in year 2, saving the town hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. This year, I reduced the medical line by 3% and guaranteed next year to be no more than the middle of the lowest tier. This is my and my staff's doing. I brought Tara to the discussion, and I negotiated with Tara while Jamie and I attended the regional group in an effort to put us in the best leveraged position. Through my and Jamie's effort, we got the reduction from Meyer, not Ed. It was Jamie, and it was me. Never has there been a reduction by hundreds of thousands of dollars before this. That is financial stability. It is an objective benchmark, yet it is viewed as a 1.6. Can that score be considered legitimate or something else?
I think it's 2.16.
Enhance financial stability of the town. I was absolutely instrumental in the contract negotiating, getting imperative key issues addressed and negotiated into the contracts. Reductions of health care contributions by new hires to 70/30, reduction in sick time buyback, employee contributions to their own OPEB. I'll leave that up there for a second. Employees are going to contribute to their own OPEB. I was key in getting buy-in to the fact that everybody has got skin in this game. It's the only way to make the system sustainable. These achievements are 100% fiscal stability and sustainability. These ongoing, continuing changes to our contracts are a legacy in stability and sustainability. I undeniably had a great deal of influence in negotiating these changes. Jamie, Superintendent Myers, and Rick Bedard can attest to my critical role in this regard. There is no debating that these are 100% objective standards of sustained stability. No one else before me has come remotely close to this benchmark, ever. I ask the viewers at home, do these accomplishments deserve a score of 1.6? Develop an infrastructure preservation and renovation program. Score 1.93. I inherited a $15 million disaster. It wasn't my creation, and it didn't appear overnight. I certainly cannot be blamed for the state of our infrastructure, and the claim that I have not adequately addressed the infrastructure is practically comical. I came up with funding sources that will come to fruition once the state issues pending marijuana licenses. These fees associated with marijuana will pay for the roads, bridges, and MS4 permit. Until such time as the money is flowing, we structured our budget to ensure cash to pay for it. We still maintained our operations, and we still have enough cash to address the infrastructure. Once we have the marijuana fees, we can go back to a more standardized budgeting scheme, but until such time, this ensures both operations and capital is funded. Develop infrastructure preservation renovation program. How long was South Main Street Bridge closed for? How long was it one lane? The BOS could have repeatedly opened that bridge year upon year had they called a special town meeting and raised the additional growth to do so. The bridge was unnecessarily closed for many years, affecting the downtown development and traffic. That was not my doing. So what was my doing? I opened up South Main Street Bridge. Last year, we spent around $2 million on infrastructure. We did crack sealing as well. This year, we will spend another $2.3 million, and we again will do crack sealing, all within the levy limit, no overrides. Multiple grants have been awarded, and we actively continue to seek other grants. How about our building systems and walkways? The town hall stairs were failing. The building inspector wanted to fail them due to them being broken, cracked, missing treads. I had the DPW repair it. And to say for how long, that was many years before I got here. I got here in the first year I fixed it. Town hall's handicap ramp was not compliant. It had dead ends and no ramps, again for many years. I fixed it in the second year. The library walkway was broken. I had DPW repair it. The library door wouldn't open and flooded. I had DPW repair it. The library stairs are now failing for the same reasons as town hall. I budgeted to fix that in the FY20 budget. The library heating and cooling system was repaired. Over 5 years of complaints on that one issue alone. I got it repaired. I had the lighting repaired on the driveway in the building. The sign out front had been out for years. I got it repaired. Develop an infrastructure preservation renovation program. Score 1.93. What haven't I addressed? There's a sustainable plan for our roads, bridges, culverts. I've fixed pre-existing systems and infrastructure deficiencies that were broken for decades in some cases, and I've asked for no additional taxation to do it. Not one system broke, and not one single infrastructure deficiency occurred while I have been in office. To the contrary, 100% of them were pre-existing but ignored. I've addressed pre-existing problems with sustainable solutions. How is this legitimately a score of 1.93? Perhaps the evidence of a distinct pattern is simply building higher. I leave that to the audience at home and the video preserving the record to decide. When three scorers systematically skew the scores with the repeated ones, a combined overall score of 1.34 out of 5, in direct conflict with the obvious evidence before them, it is not defensible. The other two scorers had a combined average of 2.8 out of 5. The record is quite obvious, and the people at home can clearly see it for what it is. How can three scorers defend such obvious skewed scores? To say that I do not support my staff in their development when I'm literally the only manager in Millbury history to ever send managers to the MMA conference or encourage them and to budget the managers for them to get their licenses and accreditations. It's not even defensible. I am budgeting for and I am encouraging and I'm pushing them out the door to go get their licenses, go get their certifications. Never before has that ever been. To say that I haven't developed and implemented a viable infrastructure plan or that I am somehow responsible for the state of our infrastructure is not even remotely reasonable on its face. How can my communication be lacking when I'm deliberately left out of conversation unless I interject? My reports are not presented in meetings, and then they go without response via correspondence. I ask, in the face of direct, obvious evidence to the contrary, when I've gotten this town to the fiscally stable position that it is in by actually getting us to 5% reserves, and you heard the auditors say 10% in unfunded, I'm funding OPEB, I'm increasing our abatement account, and funding unfunded liabilities right before we bond. How is that even remotely possible that 3 scorers gave me an average score of 1.66 in fiscal stability versus the other 2 scorers giving me a 2.9 in the same category? Is it somehow that the first 3 scorers were somehow unaware of these accomplishments, or that they're really not that important and shouldn't rate highly? Or is it for some other reason? How is it that 3 scorers somehow do not see all the infrastructure being worked on and acknowledge a sustainable plan, scoring it a 1.33? And the other 2 scorers see the same infrastructure accomplishments and view that metric as 2.82. Is there some legitimate reason to rank the objective task, do infrastructure and pay for it in a sustainable manner, a 1.33, while the other scores rate it a 2.8? Is the infrastructure program somehow not visible to one group?
Yeah.
Or is this perhaps a pervasive pattern? These were just a few categories highlighted. I wasn't going to spend an hour on this, but it's representative of each and every category listed in the performance review. 3 scorers gave 1s systematically for each category throughout the entire performance review, while the other 2 gave it varying ratings up and down accordingly. Does this show a pattern? I leave it to the people at home to decide, and the video to preserve and document for the record. This is my livelihood, and if and when it is affronted, I will defend it. I have said it before, and I say it again. What is readily asserted is readily denied. But I'll add to that, more accurately, what is readily asserted is readily denied, but more importantly, facts will always make animus come to light. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to address your concern about the levels, I think is possibly that the scorers that were a little bit more harsh spend a little more time trying to communicate with you and don't feel like they get it returned. So that's probably the reason why the difference in ratings, Mr. Manager. That the people that are trying to communicate you on the hardball issues don't feel they're getting communicated back appropriately or following the guidelines that the board is trying to set forth.
Well, to expand upon that, I think it's also, there's several parts to the communication. It's not just about the Board of Selectmen and the Town Manager. It's about citizens. It's about other boards and committees. It's not just a narrow communication between the Board of Selectmen and the Town Manager as is on here. So I just wanted to expand upon that.
Right.
I appreciate the board's concern, and for argument's sake, we can take communication, put it off to the side, say for summary process, let's say you've reached the burden. Every other score, systematically, 1s across the board by 3 of the 5 members. It's not defensible when you look at the budget, and you just heard the auditors, all of the things that were done, getting a 1.33, it's not defensible. It shows a systematic pattern. It shows 3 members were going to vote 1s regardless of what the category was. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate all that Mr. Vani's done in the financial department. He's done a very good job, and the town has done a very good job supporting all their taxes. I mean, the money's there. It's not, I mean, how much did we grow this year? I mean, the money's there. So, yeah, it looks good on paper.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I don't recall Mr. Vani being in any of the negotiating rooms, getting OPEB. I don't recall Mr. Vani being on the phone with Tara, getting a reduction in our medical. I don't recall Mr. Vani calling Tara to bring her to the table when we were going to have a 16.7% increase. No, Mr. Chairman, that was me and me alone.
Well,
And even
kudos
if it
to your
does
staff.
reflect on, if it reflects on Mr. Varney, it reflects on me. Everything that my staff does through me. And if you look at the sixth part of the charter, the finance department is my department. So anything that happens underneath that is my doing. It's right in the charter. So if we want to go down that road, those are my accomplishments too.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any thing for the manager?